I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and this week I just finished editing another leftover dye video and thinking about the process where I am just so free-flowing and moving with colors that may not work together and not worrying about how it's going to end up or the coverage. I want to recreate that on purpose. Now, this is something that I've tried recently in Dyepot Weekly 274. And when filming that video, I found myself trying to create something that was very reproducible. And so I spent a lot of time thinking and overthinking and measuring out the different colors. And I don't want to do that today. I think that I am just going to pick a proportion of colors and go for it. My goal today is to, with the intent of me picking the colors that I'm going to use, I want to be as free-flowing as I am if I have a bunch of dyes that I want to use up on my counter. So that is the goal and the feeling I am aiming for today, because I've noticed that when I am going with just these leftovers and we're going to just throw it all together and see what happens, I love the results and the results is magic. But when I'm doing it and paying attention, I overthink the color placement maybe, or the color amounts that I'm measuring. And so we're gonna go for it today. Before we go get started, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my lab partner, Julie. Julie, thank you so much for being my lab partner today. And I really hope you're going to enjoy the yarn that I dye. If you at home would like to learn more about how you can become a lab partner in an episode of Dyepot Weekly, you can find more information in the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. There will be links down below. But now, let's go look at the yarn that I've got on the counter right there. I have pre-soaked 200 grams of Knit Picks Swish DK. This yarn is 100% superwash merino. It is a very, very fun base. I have added on reusable nylon zip ties to the base. It's a great way to help prevent tangles and flip the yarn if needed in our process. I feel like this is pre-soaked for at least 30 minutes, and so that's usually the minimum amount that I pre-soak my yarn. And this is just plain tap water. There's no acid in here yet. The three colors we're going to use today are Deep Purple, Hot Fuchsia, and then some True Black. Now the Deep Purple and Hot Fuchsia are 1% stocks, or at least they were when I mixed them, and the True Black is a 2% stock. The reason why I threw away the comment like they were when I mixed them, it's that older dye stocks can still work great to dye yarn, but if you want the most reproducibility, and which, you know, isn't what we're going for today, but if you want the most reproducibility, I recommend mixing your stocks fresh, because while everything is still warm and well mixed, even if you shake things up, you know that you're getting consistent results. And this is really just stemming back from the one time I tried to recreate something off camera with the end of a stock solution and the color was significantly more intense than what I had done the first time. Hey, Operation Not Overthink. That's what we're going for today. Sorry, I can't. I'm working on my mindset. Okay, in each of these cups, I have a half cup of water. And in one, I'm gonna add a tablespoon of this, what is it, Hot Fuschia from Jacquard. Not gonna bother rinsing off the spoon because we'll be blending things together anyway. I am gonna do 2 tablespoons of Deep Purple, which does look brown. Do I want just 2 or do I want, let's do 1 more. Let's go there. So that's 3 tablespoons of Deep Purple, or about 45 milliliters, because each tablespoon is about 15 milliliters. And then I'm gonna do, might be a little too much, but I'm gonna do 1 tablespoon of the 2% Dharma True Black. And so while we do have a fair amount of pigment here, I guess it is equivalent to, since it's a 2%, that's like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 15 is 90. So we have about 0.9, we have about 90 milliliters of 1%, the equivalent of 1% stock solutions, which means that we have 0.9 grams of dye, which is more than a reasonable amount to dye 200 grams of yarn. Black and purple are both fairly pigmented, so we should have some reasonable color coverage. And yeah, I think that even though, I mean, I guess technically what I've mixed here is perfectly reproducible, and I'm still keeping track, but I don't want to overthink how the colors will work together. I want to be surprised with how this turns out. I just had an epiphany. I need to listen to my own advice. I am approaching this project today being like, okay, we're gonna grab fairly random amounts of these 3 colors. I wonder what we'll get. And it is really easy to be excited and free-flowing when you approach your project with, these are my materials, this is what I'm gonna do, what's gonna happen? I can't wait to see what'll happen. It makes it really easy to be excited and relaxed. When I am trying to recreate something or I have a very specific vision of what I want to get in my head, I find that I start overthinking things a lot more. And so my main advice always is to have fun, go for it, see what happens. Which, again, to acknowledge the privilege that I have because I have access to a lot of bare yarn, and making mistakes isn't gonna have a huge financial consequence for me. So that is something I do want to acknowledge. But this is also a reason why I'm gonna take risks and try to make mistakes so that way we can all learn from it. So that is a big goal of mine. So let's go dye some yarn. In my 4-inch deep full-size catering steam pan, I now have 16 cups of water, and I am going to add 6 tablespoons of white vinegar. I decide how much vinegar I add to my pan based on the volume of water versus the volume of yarn, because that's what pH is based on, the total volume of liquid that you have. Since we're dyeing with commercial dyes, all of the tools and equipment I'm using are dedicated for dyeing yarn and aren't used for the preparation of food. I am arranging this 200 grams of yarn in here. This is a lot of liquid, so we are in a more full immersion situation. The fibers can really float and there's space for the colors to spread. But I do have them lined up so that way the skeins are going around like that versus like this, so that way we can have like access to more of the strands at a time. If you'd like to learn more about any of the tools or equipment I like to use for dyeing yarn, I do have affiliate links down in the video description for like Knit Picks, Amazon, and a few other places. And I also have a blog post where I list my favorite like spoons and pots and all kinds of stuff. So if you want to get started on your yarn dyeing journey and want to know what I recommend, it's all down there in the description of every video. All right, let's heat this up. We don't need to get to a whole simmer, but let's get a little bit warm and then we'll start adding the color. Of the 3 colors that I have, I think that our black is probably the most pigmented. We aren't yet at a boil, but we are nice and warm, and let's just add some of the black. And we'll just sort of wait a moment and see what happens. The deep purple is likely very pigmented, and notice how it goes on brown, but then very, very quickly, maybe I'll grab my turkey baster, very quickly it shifts to our purple. I decided to start with these more pigmented colors because there's more pigmentation, they are gonna spread a bit more, and the Hot Fuschia will likely spread a lot. And so I decided to save that for last, to just wait and see. Ooh, the patterning here is really cool to see what the purple and the black are going to do. But sorry, turkey baster, we're just gonna go for it. We're just gonna go for it and apply the color. This is really fun. All right, I have a tiny bit of black I'm gonna save. I have a tiny bit of purple that I'm going to save. And I'm really excited. It's taken a lot of restraint to not like go in and poke, but you can see that we're getting spread. We're getting these grays and pale purples as the dye works its way through. And I could come in and shimmy and shift it. And depending on how the yarn looks, I can dilute the last bit of deep purple and true black that I have with the other side if we want different kinds of coverage. But now let's come in with this pink. Ooh, that is bright. That is a moment. That is fun. This color probably might strike quickly, but it also really just might not. This neon pink molecule, whatever the dye is, does take longer and more heat to absorb, so odds are that it will spread pretty far. And I'm gonna go ahead and just add some pops of it randomly, just in some spots where I want a little more coverage. The only thing I'm aiming to do is add similar amounts of colors to both skeins, so that way Julie can easily use them in one project. But now I'm gonna step back. I would say between 10 and 25% of each of the colors I mixed left. And this looks really fun. I can see that black and purple are continuing to spread a bit. So I think let's go ahead and wait 15 minutes and then we can check and see how much color is left, and then at that point maybe I'll touch it. But right now I am very excited. What a difference, right? Let's see how we're doing color-wise. I feel like there's probably a hint of pink, but otherwise it looks like from the spoon method that everything else has absorbed. So I am going to flip it. You can see we've got some pinks. This is so pretty. So pretty. You can see that there's a bit of pink in the water, but that's why I added those pinks onto the yarn last, because where they're most intense, I could have some control over that. Oh man, I like where it is now. I do want to use the rest of the color just because I want to see where that will bring us when we layer that last, not very much, but last bit of color on. Okay, let's do some of our black right there. That's that, although I will rinse out this cup with that little bit of leftover dye. There are going to be some differences between the two skeins. That is inevitable with this type of technique, but you can see that with the black, I had a little more black on one than the other, so I tried to do the reverse with the purple. And then just those leftovers in our cup. Yeah, so we're not adding a ton more color. There's definitely like a bias with how my hand pours. But I think that this is really fun. I'm really thrilled with the result. I think that the key for this kind of easygoing technique is that you can do something reproducible. If you plan, okay, I'm gonna do how quickly you're gonna pour that color, but if you pick 3 colors that you know will blend with each other in a really fun way, that's a great way to get started with this. I think that it could be fun if you picked, say, red, yellow, and blue and did this, but it would be harder to picture the result. And I knew that by picking a deep purple, a black, and a pink, I would end up with something in a purplish realm, and I was happy with that. And so I think picking colors that are close together for this could lead to some really epic results. But anyway, I am going to let this sit on heat for 15 more minutes. Then we'll turn off the heat and let things cool completely so we can absorb the rest of those pinks. It has been 15 minutes and I'm expecting that just about all the color has absorbed with the exception of a little bit of pink. So I'm going to turn off the water. I'm gently just moving it because sometimes that can help. And I'm going to let things cool off for a while until I can comfortably remove it here in the pan to let any other pinks and stuff absorb. I absolutely love how this yarn turned out. It is so pretty and soft, and my attitude was so different for this whole project, and I'm really, really happy. I think that, like, I still measured out the colors, but I just went for it. I just added a little bit of some dish soap to this, trying to see if we have any bleeding, but it doesn't look like it, which is always awesome when we have some, okay, maybe there's like a hair. Sometimes True Black, there's like a little bit of like something that gets rinsed out and then is fine. Okay, let's check it out. But yeah, I'm not expecting there to be further issues. Wahoo! This is perfect. All right, I am going to rinse out the rest of the soap, put the yarn through my spin dryer, and then hang it up to dry so we can take a look at the finished yarn. But yeah, I think that I just sometimes need to remind myself to just go for it. And you know that the colors will spread some and move some, but as long as like you're picking things and you're okay with the colors blending and not preserving those original colors, it can work so well. Oh, I'm so happy. Julie, this yarn is beautiful. I think that where things went really, really well today is that we used a combination of colors that strike on the faster side, like the black, and then ones like this pink, this fuchsia, that strike on the slower side, which you do see pops of the pink. Part of it did strike fast, but I think that because this allowed the colors to still spread a bit, but not all combine completely, we've got this beautiful softness to the colorway. In places, you know, there are some speckles almost just because of the way that the color sank. It hit water first and then spread, but sometimes just sank with the, I guess probably the force of pouring it on. And the way that it was able to hit different strands, maybe because, say it hit this place first, but if some of these, where we see these little splotches of color, because it was so spread out, if the dye going through maybe just hit just that one spot before it started spreading, there's something about this that's really, really fun and unique, and I am so happy right now. The reason why I'm so happy is that I was able to keep this free-flowing, I've got leftovers, let's just use them on the skein and see what happens attitude to this project. But I also measured the amount of dye, know how much of the different dyes that I added. So in theory, this is a one-of-a-kind colorway technique, but it might actually have some amount of reproducibility. Granted, there will be some variation, but I think that, you know, knowing things like the order that I applied the colors and the volume that I had diluted them in to pour in, those are all things that mean, in theory, I could replicate that. And so this might be what I need to try next. I think that I might need to try this where I dye one pan and then I dye another one and see if I get something that is as free as this, but more reproducible. And if I'm able to do that without stressing, then I think that that would be really fun. Because I feel like I could go in and just mix similar amounts of these three colors and then go to the pan, and I'd know it would be different. It would be a different dye lot. But the difference between batch to batch might be more similar to the difference when I'm speckling on a countertop, and the total amount of dye might vary, but the overall feeling of that yarn is similar. And so that is sort of what I'm going for here. So I'm really, really happy. Julie, thank you so much for being my lab partner today and supporting the Dyepot Weekly series. I really hope you are going to enjoy this yarn. If you at home would like to learn more about how you can become a lab partner, get shout outs and yarn from an episode of Dyepot Weekly, you can go and check out the listings in the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. The shop is also filled with over 100 skeins of hand-dyed yarn that have been featured in my videos, past and upcoming, and so it's a really fun way for you to help support the content here and get some beautiful hand-dyed yarn at the same time. Please make sure that you are subscribed to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel. I post at least 2 new yarn dyeing videos every single week, and there's bonuses along the way, and we have so much fun. So subscribe and press the bell icon to turn on notifications. Finally, what color combinations would you like to see me play with? I think that with this kind of technique, I mainly want to pick things that I think would blend together in a way that works nicely. Whether that's combining brights and darks or doing things that are very complementary versus contrasting. So feeling like, am I going for like a blues vibe, a purple vibe, something like that, sunsetty? Because knowing that if I did this with red, orange, and yellow, we'd probably lose a lot of the yellows, but that might give some good depth to the colorway. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching.